So thank you very much, Ruth, Eleanor, and Accordia for accepting my proposal to join this exciting workshop on pilgrimage. It was an occasion for me to reanalyze some epigraphic complexes in search of new meanings. I would like to introduce this contribution by settling some general inferences about the methodological tools taken from linguistics, which I believe can be useful for an integrated and multidisciplinary approach in the study of the ancient world and of sacred places in particular. I will deal with two marginal areas of pre-Roman Italy, the Alpine area and Apulia in the south. So let's start with the methodological framework. The methodological frame I will consider includes anthropological and ethnographic aspects on pilgrimage, the landscape linguistics by Ron Scollon, the theory of context developed by the linguist Eugenio Coserio, and the frame semantics by Charles Fillmore, and finally the anthropology of writing, mainly outlined by Giorgio Raimondo Cardona and the French anthropologist Beatrice Frankel. We help identify different kinds of pilgrimage, as we shall see, and understand similarities between ancient pilgrimage sites and modern memorials. Anthropologically and ethnographically seen, pilgrimages are activities undertaken by humankind in all periods of history. David Le Breton regards the pilgrimage as a form of communication in space and time. With these words, for those who are accustomed to a medium, many markers mark out their routes in the manner of a living map, often made of relationships between different objects. The outline of a path is woven through scattered signs that one must know how to discover. Beyond the path, there is everything else, off the beaten track, another use of the word, animals, forest, or rocks. Even if the walker is often indifferent to this destination, a path is a proposal, an orientation, or a direction. The topic of orientation is also stressed by other anthropologists. Simon Coleman and John Eads, reframing pilgrimage, defines pilgrimage as culture in motion, being activities such as walking, dancing, and crawling involved in the process. Before them, Victor and Elizabeth Turner, 1978, an introduction of image of pilgrimage in Christian culture, write that pilgrimage is a kinetic ritual. In pilgrimage, a place-centered approach replaces the person-centered approach we observe, for instance, in a private worshiping. Parallels have been drawn also between pilgrimages, secular institutions, such as tourism and popular youth culture. Modern memorials share with pilgrimage the place and also some aspect of the textual pattern on and the right. In any case, be the pilgrim secular or religious, it is what Zygmunt Bauman defined a restless seeker for the pilgrim, a restless seeker for identity. A destination to set purpose of life's pilgrimage gives form to the formless, makes a whole out of the fragmentary, lends continuity to the episodic. As Jan Rieder reminds us, not all pilgrimage sites are specific to one faith. In the polytheistic sanctuaries of ancient Italy, a pilgrim interested in the cult of Zeus might at the same time have worshipped other gods or goddesses. Theonymic formulas expressing divine couples are frequent in ancient Italy, found in every linguistic and epigraphic tradition. The order in which the theonyms appear in the inscriptions reveals their rank and their reciprocal relationship. Derivative suffixes, such as in Zeus mefit anus, in the inscriptions from Rossano di Vaglio, or the Jupiter or Mars grab ovius of the Juvinian tables, reveal the importance of local gods with respect to the main gods of the Italic pantheon. As for relevance of pilgrimage places, renewed international sanctuaries go hand in hand with numerous minor sites of local use. People unable to travel can perform short-distance pilgrimages with the same benefits. Also, replication of more famous sites are known in several religions. And the same must have happened in the ancient world as well. The differentiation among the aims of ancient travelers is challenging to set. If we consider the pilgrim as an archetypal seeker, the distinction between secular and religious pilgrimage becomes more and more blended. The reasons to travel can be mixed: pilgrimage, migration, travel for learning, visit shrines, but we don't have native speakers who tell us the reasons why they embarked on a pilgrimage. Nevertheless, we have traces of different motivation in traveling toward the cult place, as reflected in inscriptions and in archaeological records. And first archaeological records and then inscriptions, as you want. In any case, pilgrims who want to experience the sacred landscapes have previously learned about mythical narratives. The pilgrimage turned out to be the accomplishment of a process, the internal pathway that leads to the experience of sacrality. For this reason, pilgrims tend to leave offerings or mementos of their visit. Nancy Louise Fry underlines that walking is not only a form of self-sacrifice requesting endurance and austerity, it also allows pilgrims to rediscover the past. People undertake a pilgrimage to leave their world behind and rediscover their origins, the traditions of their ancestors. In this regard, Christopher Tilley's assumption that place is fundamental to the establishment of personal and group identities and the formation of biographies fits very well also to pilgrimage places. With this quotation, we have entered the topic of the phenomenological view of pilgrimage. Every human environment influences human activities, perceptions, and religious understanding. On the one hand, humans interpret, shape, and transform their natural environment. Sacred places may be perceived differently depending on the observer's cultural and religious experience, which changes through time and space. The landscape becomes medium and is no longer the mere container of human products. It conveys meanings, especially when it is naturally or anthropically marked. Natural features, such as springing waters or rocks on stones, mountains, river, and trees, sometimes the seclusion from the civil world might have led it to grow in sacrality. On the other hand, human or God-related events can turn a place into a memorial. In the sacred landscape, all the more in pilgrimage places, all things are related. Ralph Häusler and Gianfranco Chiai, in the introduction of their miscellany Sacred Landscapes, speak of taskscape, intended as a constructed space of related human activities, all interlocking. Any task is embedded in how other tasks are seen and understood. The phenomenological viewpoint developed by Christian Tilley in 1994 based on Heidegger's and Husserl's philosophy involves the understanding and description of things as they are experienced by a subject. It is about the relationship between being and being in the world. This framework paved the way for a cognitive approach to human experience. However, phenomenology in archaeology might hide a weakness. As recently outlined by Häusler and Chiai, it is difficult to practice the being in the world in reconstructing the landscape. Each archaeologist has his own experience, historically and disciplinarily influenced. In some cases, social agents and historical conditions may play a role in the reconstruction of landscapes. To overcome this weakness, we can work on a multidisciplinary basis, sampling all possible information of the situation we want to focus on. Our philological interpretation of the past will arise from a critical comparison of disciplines and tools. In this regard, considering the context in the broadest possible meaning can help to reconstruct ancient landscapes. The historical linguist Eugenio Coserio developed, starting from the 60s, the so-called Umfeld or entorno theory. The Spanish term entorno sums up the combination of context and situation. He distinguishes in Italian terms in the book La linguistica del testo, published in 1997, every possible declination of the concept of context, including every category useful to define the universe in which an act, I would say, linguistic or not linguistic, takes place. As you can see, it distinguishes a situation, situazione, regione, contesto e universo del discorso. The context is taken in a founding concept in the geosemiotic and frame semantics approaches as well. For the frame semantics developed by Charles Fillmore in 1976, the frame is a cognitive pattern that helps in reading situations and events in the world. Frames help in contextualizing situations and are culturally related. Roman institutions, Etrusco-Italic sanctuaries, medieval worshiping, Alpine votive sites, cave sanctuaries are examples of frames. In frame semantics, words represent categorization of experience, and each of these categories is underlain by a motivating situation occurring against the background of knowledge and experience. He defines the frame as a system of categories structured following some motivating context, assuming that the background context is absolutely essential to understand the category. In other words, in the process of using a language, a speaker applies a frame to a situation and shows that he/she intends this frame to be applied by using words recognized as grounded in such a frame. The concept of frame semantics can be applied not only to languages, but also to images and contexts, because every sign in the word is a bearer of meaning. For the landscape linguistics and geosemiotics approach of Ron Scollon, there are three ways in which a word, a sign, a phrase, a figure, or a gesture express meaning. They can be icons, if they schematically represent an object, as an emoji. Symbols, if they arbitrarily represent it, like a traffic light. Indexes, the most important features, I think. They represent somethings depending on their position in the words. Arrows and exit signals are the most evident indexes. But every object or word or symbol can become an index. Linguistically seen, deictics, such as here, there, local or time adverbs, once, now, verb tense, past and future can be indexes. They suggest how to read the frame, in this case, landscape, and offer a path from which we can start interpreting the situation. As we will see, the form in which inscriptions appear on a surface can become themselves an index of spatial text classes. Following the tools listed above, we will gather all possible information, which leads to an attempt of the multidisciplinary hermeneutics in investigating ancient landscapes. Explore the geographic situation and condition of the landscape, gather literary sources when available, sample archaeological data, gather linguistic and epigraphic data. And this the new thing, identify indexes. This task will move from a comparative anthropological and ethnographical approach, which allows establishing similar patterns in different societies and comparing them. Assign the indexes a provisional value, work on an hypothesis, and verify whether the value assigned corresponds to all requirements. This procedure is called internal reconstruction in relic language studies. If the value provisionally assigned encounters a high level of satisfaction of all requirements, we are approaching the truth, and the theory is worthy of being pursued. For time's sake, I will present only two pilgrimage places of pre-Roman Italy with epigraphic evidence. In the printed version, other cases will be included. The first one is the script boulder of the Carona in Val Camisana, Bergamo. In the Western Alpine area, the archaeologists Stefania Casini and Angelo Fossati and the linguist Filippo Motta have unveiled a group of inscribed rock boulders at the source of Brembo along the slopes of Mount Aga in the Bergamo province. The place's altitude, this is also an index, goes from 2,100 to 2,400 meters on sea level. The limestone boulders present a dense network of overlapping inscriptions belonging to different times. In pre-Roman ages, Lepontic and Camunic texts have been identified starting with the 5th century BC. Roman age texts partially cover more ancient inscriptions. A dense network of mostly thread-like secondary writings interventions covers much of the surface. You can distinguish the inscriptions here is the later one. This is dated 1992. Then symbols, figures, human figures, and so many thread-like traits. Among the scratched signs are crosses, hearts, Solomon notes, 5-pointed stars, and an armed man of medieval ages. Among the boulders, the most important is the so-called Camisana 1, which displays Lepontic inscriptions and proto-historic figures. Scholars attribute to this boulder the value of a focal point of the natural sanctuary, connected with the sources of the Brembo and the nearby high-altitude pass of Valsecca. On the Camisana 1 boulder, there is also a Latin alphabet of Republican age, consisting of 21 letters of different sizes, with insertion of Lepontic letters, the A and the P, and the F made in italics. This place must have been a pilgrimage site with a succession of different pilgrims over the centuries. The indexes, which allow recognizing religious activity at first glance, are the icons, such as the stars, symbols, and alphabet series. We know that alphabets possess magical value in the ancient world. Comparative studies in different epigraphic traditions allow the reconstruction of this value at the very beginning of writing, when letters were employed to name stars in the Near Eastern tradition and even numbers in Greek. Alphabetic series, including signs which not always were effectively used in the text, have been recorded in Portugal, in the Pyrenees, in Provence, in Val Camonica, Venetic, Etruscan, and Oscan inscriptions of Pompeii, and in Messapian. In some inscriptions in this Val Brembana, the abbreviations of the names of Iovis Peninus, written Poe and Pe, is quoted so that the interpretation of the boulders as an open-air pilgrimage place can be confirmed. The overlapping texts build another index of the kind of pilgrimage practice in this place, which is very similar, as we shall see, to the situation of Grota Poesia, and also very similar to contemporary memorials. Let's move to Grota Poesia. To Apulia. As known, Messapian is an Indo-European language of fragmentary attestation. About 600 texts are known, excluding the 1,000 of inscriptions in the cave of the poetry, Grota Poesia, coming from 3 cultural districts, Daunia, Peucetia, and Messapia. In the map, you can see the epigraphic size of the different districts. The Maritime Cave Sanctuary is located in Roccavecchia, in the municipality of Melendugno, on the Adriatic coast of Messapia. The Grota Complex is an underground area including caves, corridors, and siphons discovered by man probably during the late prehistoric period, when they entered a long tunnel from the seaside and reached a large room with a fresh water spring, probably, which they chose as a place of worship. 2 large cast cavities known as Grota Poesia Grande and Grota Poesia Piccola are both invaded by seawater and open to the sky due to a collapse of their roof. The largest of the 2 caves counts as one of the most extraordinary archaeological monuments ever discovered in the ancient Mediterranean. Hundreds of carvings including signs of hands, animals, spirals, and even the Minoan-like pairing of bucranium, double axe, are hundreds and hundreds of inscriptions attest to an intense religious activity, at least from the Neolithic to the beginning of the Roman Republican age. Alongside votive text in the Messapic and Apulian, the northern variety of the language, alphabet, the cave exhibits a few Latin and Greek inscriptions. This cave proved the cave's frequentation over the centuries. The maritime cave, occasionally known by local visitors, attracted the scientific community's attention in 1983 as the historian and epigraphist Cosimo Pagliara from the University of Lecce undertook a first analysis and report of the site. Carlo De Simone offered a preliminary report on the selection of inscriptions in 1992 and published 21 texts based on the autoptic analysis and on Pagliara's transcriptions. Votive texts entailed new words such as the adjective antigrao, which is a sort of Latin inferus, used to define the god Tautor, or verbs expressed in the usive or imperative, such as ligavis, lay down, the offers, or apistati, offer, both deeply connected to a sacral environment where people perform different ritual actions. Among the divi names, we have to remark that while this corresponded to Zeus and Venus corresponded to the Greek Aphrodite are common in the European heritage, Tautor is a local god, unparalleled in the European world. In the 90s, the University of Salento undertook a massive casting operation on the written surface of the grotta after building scaffolding to make the survey possible. Despite the very challenging environmental situation, a large part of the inscribed surface was cleaned and coated with a polyurethane resin layer. The resins were then converted into resin panels. These are the panels, some example of the panels, which today lay in the stores of the Dipartimento di Beni Culturali. The reading and new reading of the interpretation of the text are just at the start. The extremely complex frame in which the inscriptions were scratched, and the multi-layer execution prevented expert archaeologists and epigraphists even to attempt the deciphering activity so far, both in situ and on the resin cast. In recent times, the new activities carried out in the Grotta by a consortium of 8 partners, Alteritas, University of Lecce, the technological partner CETMA, the University of Rome, La Sapienza, the archaeological superintendents of Brindisi, Lecce and Taranto, Municipality of Melendugno, Association Vivarc, the Geological Enterprise ENSU, aimed at preserving, valorization, and studying the cave, Evelo taking some pictures and at the same time beginning a photogrammetric campaign on site and on the resin casts made in the 80s, thus verifying some of the Pagliara's readings. Recent survey trials using photogrammetry and laser scanning have been carried out by CETMA. These photos are from courtesy from Italo Spada. As we say, the cave presents the result of 2 different writing activities. Votive texts, which are relatively well readable, and a net of overlapping writing activities, impossible to read to the human eye. Only artificial intelligence will allow disentangling this dense network of signs, and we are working on it to develop an artificial intelligence tool. The above mentioned methodological approaches we have outlined allow recognizing the same result in both situations I have presented, but the methods applies in other monuments as well, such as the inscribed walls of the Schneidjoch and Steiberg am Rofen in the Tyrolean Alp. This is another example of overlapping inscriptions here seen in the casts by the Tiroler Landesmuseum. or other inscribed caves. Two different kinds of writing activities can occur in the same context. On the one hand, the religious pilgrimage, which produces official dedications, proper votive texts. On the other hand, the complicated spinet of overlapping and illegible tags qualified the writing activity as a compelling need to attest someone's presence. They can be referred to a secular pilgrimage too, which we observe in the modern memorials. As the French anthropologist Beatrice Frankel has observed, memorials often show repeated inscriptions, also called tags, which one over another, without any concern, are written one over another, without any concern of readability. The last intervention covers more ancient texts, producing undeciphered sign. This activity has been observed in modern memorials and ancient places alike. These are only just some examples. Verona, la Casa di Giulietta. This is the Elephant Cafe in Edinburgh, the memorial to J.K. Rowling. The underlying motivation to leave a written sign of presence, mainly the first name and the date, characterizes different memorials. Whether the nature of the site is religious or not, devotional practice develops in people visiting this practice. In the present days, we have observed such memorials linked to misfortunes or attacks. The tag left on the Twin Towers Memorial in New York, but even on the Sanctuary of San Romedio in the North Valley are similar. In both cases, be they secular or religious memorials, visitors leave a trace of their presence by writing a name, date, inscribing them in engraved hearts. The control of religious or other local authorities on the sanctuary or memorial sometimes prohibits extemporary writing activities, as you can see in this. Se credi prega, se non credi ammira, se sei sciocco, scrivi il tuo nome sui muri. Sometimes it allows it under their supervision, as in the Verona Casa di Giulietta. Yet it seems that there is a tendency to avoid genuine sacred text in both sanctuaries and memorials. As for the other topic, I would like to briefly to speak, the short, long-distance pilgrimage in ancient sanctuaries. There are two detectors which allow to the identification of the kind of pilgrimage in terms of epigraphic evidence. The first comes from the paleographic analysis, the second from the analysis of personal names. The first detector is more reliable, as graphic habits are locally anchored, revealing the epigraphic tradition to which a writer belongs. As for personal names, while first names can undergo fashion motivations, inherited family names, the gentile, may reveal something about the origin of the dedicator. In descriptions of the Grota, epigraphic elements revealing short distance origin of the pilgrimage regard the following items, which are both phonological and graphemic. The use of the letters, usually not used in the epigraphy of the Salento district, the proper Messapic epigraphy, such as, for example, the het for long E, while in Messapic the heta is used for the aspiration of H. In the Grota, two inscriptions attest the use of het for long E, or the graphemic realization of the sound U alongside the sound O, while in Messapian, the O sound is attested exclusively. I have highlighted in the red letters. From 24 attestations of the graphem U with the Messapic corpus, 16 comes from northern side, one from the border between northern and southern districts. In the Grota Poesia, several occurrences of this northern alphabetic variant are known so far. In the above mentioned inscription, in these inscriptions, the attestation of graphemes, usually attested in northern Apulian district, allows reconducting the inscriptions to the people who lived there. For the analysis of personal names, we must rely on the transcriptions written by Pagliara, which we are now recontrolling, and published by De Simone in 1991 and in the Monumenta Lingue Messapiche. If we refer to the name formulas quoted in the text, we collect a series of Messapic names spread through the southern part of the Apulia, the proper Messapia. From the analysis of the gentiles included in the text of the Grota, it results that many names are hapax legomina, attested only once in the cave. Two of them have Latin origins, Cocceias and Casareias. Two are feminine, only two. From these attested elsewhere in Apulia, many correspondences can be found in other southern cities, such as Aletium, Celium, Lupie, Uria, Vaste, Tarentum, Ignazia, Ostudi, and Brundisium. No names find correspondence with other districts outside the Messapia. All sites are from 50, with the similar names, are from 50 to 100 kilometers from Rocca. The epigraphic evidence of the Grota so far present a short-scale sanctuary, a place of pilgrimage for people coming mainly from Messapic districts, sporadically from northern Apulia. The two Greek inscriptions found in the Grota appear to be late and statistically irrelevant. There are only two, and the 2 dozen of Latin inscriptions, apparently non-occupatio voti, belong to a later phase of frequentation of the caves during the Romanization. This short, dense pilgrimage in the Grota Poesia reflects also what we know from the archaeological evidence. Most of the ancient pre-Roman cults places in Apulia show a local frequentation in the archaic and in the most recent times. Let's come to the conclusions. Several kinds of pilgrimage may affect the same cult places. In the epigraphic and archaeological evidence, it is challenging to distinguish secular from religious pilgrimage. The ethnographic comparison with other cultures make it clear that it is often impossible to separate the two activities. Every worship act is a pilgrimage, and every cult activity practiced away from home becomes a pilgrimage. Nevertheless, the evidence of overlapping inscriptions, which become more and more unintelligible over the centuries, seems to be the index of a secular frequentation, of a secular pilgrimage too. The compelling writing activity of scratching tags on a wall recalls the eternal human need to leave a sign, to mark the territory with their presence. However, the inevitable illegibility to which the tag is condemned gives the writing act a performative nature that becomes, paradoxically, a ritual act. Thank you.